Yeah, I'm Kevin Rye and I run Think Fan Engagement, and we're launching the new Fan Engagement Index for the 2021-2022 season. No, the Fan Engagement Index measures fan engagement using publicly sourced data from clubs, leagues and other organisations to provide a kind of standard measurement of fan engagement across the 92 professional clubs in England. And is released on an annual basis.
And so what do you look at to come to your ranking system of what is the best and the worst clubs?
The way it's measured is that, and all of this is in the public domain, is we measure dialogue, so the conversations that happen between clubs and fans, governance, what makes that possible, what we might say underpins it, and then transparency, that's whether that information is public. And every club gets scored by the same. All of it is information that footballers either mandated clubs to do or says is best practice. So it's kind of holding a mirror up to the game, really.
So we're outside, we're in North London, outside Arsenal's stadium this afternoon. Arsenal top of the league. So presumably they must be the best club to come and support and watch, are they?
Yeah, that's always the assumption. I think when clubs are doing well, when there's a good feeling about the place, it's assumed that everything works. And whilst, look, I know relationships have improved at Arsenal over the last sort of couple of years since the Super League debacle, it's still, they're still not doing brilliantly well. I mean, in the end, I go by what is publicly available, and that's the same for any fan looking for information, I might add. It's not just me. But no, I mean, one of the problems is that clubs don't value this enough. Too much of it is left to clubs to do. That is changing, and lots of clubs are beginning to adopt better structures, better ways of doing it, but it's still a problem. And I'm afraid, yeah, further up the league you go, the further up the table you go, the further up the structure into the Premier League that you go, I'm afraid, yes, the less well-performing clubs are.
So I think Arsenal are about 62nd or 63rd by your findings, and the Premier League clubs in general perform badly, don't they? Why is that?
Well, I mean, look, they're by their own recognition. They announced the fan engagement standard in summer last year, which I understand is going through the sort of process of being fleshed out, and clubs are adopting new sort of structures to communicate and listen to with and listen to their fans. So, you know, one of the reasons that it's not been focused on enough has been the constant refrain that it's about generating income, and it's too much of a focus on marketing to people and selling things. Now, you need to do that. It's absolutely right, because you need to earn money in order to make a football club work and pay your wages. But communication is a good in itself, and that with fans is an absolute fundamental. So, you know, Premier League clubs have made changes and have made improvements, but we're still not there yet.
So what could Arsenal, for example, to do to get further up to the top of your league, if that's the right word for it, as well as the top of the Premier League?
Well, they need to be, they need to look at who are their major groups. You know, one of the things that we measure is whether, for example, you have what we call a structured relationship with your supporters trust. Those tend to be the most important supporters organisations when it comes to communication at football clubs. That's just established. You know, I would be having a very direct relationship with the Arsenal Supporters Trust, because they've kind of proved over the years that they're perfectly capable of that. Down the road at Tottenham, you know, they had that, and it seems to have degraded and disappeared, and I think that's a real shame. So that would be a major part of it. Lots of it as well tends to be about availability of information. How do I find out what's going on? And that isn't about putting out interesting YouTube videos. It's about whether or not decisions that are made are publicly available. And a lot of the problem I have is finding that information. So the other part as well is that really, because I think if you look at the development of football in England, it tends to be, coming back again to that point about marketing, is we've taken far too much attention of the marketers. What we've got to do is start listening to the people that explain how to communicate with people who are more than just a customer. And that's really, in the end, what I've built everything I do on, and what Think Fan Engagement is all about, is about the idea that you've got people who are more valuable than simply customers, and that you need to work out a way to hear what they've got to say and incorporate what you do, what they need within your business. And in this case, obviously, a football club.
It's not that long since there were thousands of people standing just where you're standing today, protesting against the Arsenal owners and saying Kroenke out and all this sort of stuff around the Super League announcement. They felt they're being treated like customers. That sort of has abated sort of since then. That's presumably because they're doing so well on the pitch.
Yeah, that sort of thing happens, and then as I understand, there are better relationships. But look, one of the things is that when you look at how dialogue happens, lots of clubs think that you reserve major decisions like that for the board or for the owners, and we already know that the fan-led review has said that that's not the case. That the European Super League was a lot of clubs thinking that they owned everything about the football club, and therefore, and that heritage only meant the badge. It doesn't. Heritage also means all the things that make this club what it is, and one of those things is the manner of football that we play in this country, and that Arsenal in this case play. And it's important that we realise that, the dynamic of football isn't that you need chaotic relationships or the falling out of fans and clubs. That does happen anyway, right? That's part of it sometimes, yes. Fans have different views and people will disagree. But major fallings out because of a major bad decision, like let's join the Super League at the last minute, that isn't a necessary dynamic in football, and there are ways of flushing that out, and that is through things like dialogue and through listening. These are very common things in business outside of football, very, very common. And we just have to start looking outside of the game a bit more. I think that's one of the things that I try to do, is encourage people to think outside of football. Football is not as exceptional as it likes to think it is in terms of how it needs to operate. It just needs to listen more, and that's really what the index is all about, and why certain clubs are top and certain clubs are not.
The top performing club for the second year running, I believe, Exeter City.
Fourth year running.
I beg your pardon. So what makes Exeter City so special?
Well, I mean, look, I've never shied away from the fact that being fan-owned does score you higher, because your entire model is built around listening. That's just a part of it. But actually, there are quite a few privately owned football clubs like Carlisle, Lincoln City, and Doncaster Rovers, Norwich City, Reading, further down, but not that far away. But ultimately, the reason that Exeter do well is because they listen a lot. And it's exhausting sometimes, I suspect. It's quite tiring. Well, I know it is. It's a tiring business sometimes, but that's the business of football. So what they do is they respect the institution for what it is, which is a football club that doesn't belong ultimately to anyone, and that needs to be treated with care and attention, and you need to listen to the people who are important to you.
And do you speak to Exeter fans? Are they is this something they're proud of? That
very. And the people who run Exeter City, the people who run the Supporters Trust, which owns the football club, they're very proud of it. And I might add, this isn't something they do and instead of or in lieu of financial success. They posted a £1 million profit the other day. They've just funded a huge expansion and development of their training facilities. They are now one of the most standout clubs outside of the top levels of EPPP, the player development system, who are producing young players. They've got a rounded business model, and that, in the end, that's what I'm really after is, look, rebalance the model a little bit. Don't be so driven by the need to pay your fullback a bit more money next season. Think more clearly about what your aims are. We all know, though, ultimately, that this is the people who are running football clubs, it's a tough business. It's really hard work, and they work way beyond a lot of other equivalent organisations. But if you just create a little bit more space, a little bit more time and a little bit more resource, and you work more with your fans, you'll find this benefits you in the long run, and actually ultimately will probably increase your bottom line as well.
Just finally, Kevin, it's a fascinating sort of topic. Would it ever be possible for a club like Arsenal or Man United or Chelsea, who don't feature very well in your ranking system, to be up there challenging Exeter to win the league? Yeah,
absolutely. There's no reason why not. And already, for example, people maybe look at Brighton and say, well, they don't do very well, and they're known for being a good club when it comes to engagement. They are. They've been a very informally good club for a long time. People like Paul Barber, who's the chief executive there, have run the place properly for a long time. They've just been very informed in the way they've done it. They're introducing some new structures. At the moment, in fact, they've been running for about a year and will be measured in next year's index for this season, and they will move up the table as a result. I'm absolutely sure of it, unless something has changed that I'm not aware of. So already you'll see clubs like Brighton beginning to see it, and that it's formalise your structures, make them certain, make people understand what they are. Don't assume we all know, and that's really the way to go. Is just be more open and transparent in general, and you'll find it benefits you, not just in the league table, but just day to day.
Your report always makes quite a big impact every year when it comes out. Do you ever get any negative feedback from the club saying, "Hang on a minute, that's not fair. We're doing X, Y, Z"?
I think, to be honest with you, there isn't a sort of standard response. Occasionally, you might get some people feeling a little bit bruised by it, maybe in a way, but I think the vast majority of response has always been, even if they haven't done well, is that they respect that someone's come along and tried to frame this issue. And I have friends of mine, you know, who have run supporters trusts, have been trying to get their clubs to be more accountable, who don't necessarily agree with what I do, with every single part of it. But that's okay. What they recognise is that it's always been an important way of trying to get a proper discussion about the issues, and I think that has been its biggest and most important effect, is that we now talk about fan engagement as an important part of the way that clubs should operate.
Absolutely. Kevin, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with the project for next season as well.
Thank you very much.